of the gate. Good to be back. JT in Vegas. Vegas, baby, Vegas. Thrilled to be back on the radio, on the flagship of the Silver and Black, Raider Nation Radio. I am streaming live on YouTube. Missed all the bricklayers and the YouTubers out there. And everybody else who watches and listens, thank you so much. Good to be back here. I got a lot to cover. Here over the last 10 days that I was back east and went and saw my family and friends and had an unbelievable good time overall. And I want to thank everybody who reached out to me over the last couple of days. I've been waiting to do this monologue for 30 years on my Knicks winning the NBA championship. I'll get to that. Last night I was with my son and a bunch of friends at Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final, where Vegas absolutely no-showed the Stanley Cup Final Game 6 and got shut out on home ice, which is mind-blowing. And I got to cover a lot of that today, but I don't know if I'll get to it. Hey, it's the summer, man. I got to stretch some of this summertime radio out here. We're officially in summertime radio, everybody, which I like. I pick up extra shifts. I do a couple of other things here. We give you a big summer radio topic that we'll let you know about coming up here. But today is about the passion in my life as a sports fan, as a Knicks fan, as we open this up. So I was born and raised a Knicks fan in Long Island, New York, in Massapequa. That's because my dad, who I was with last week, who's 88 years old, was a diehard Knicks fan. My dad played college basketball at City College in New York. He was an absolute all-city icon at Bayside High School, where he and his identical twin brother played basketball, and they grew up loving the Knicks. So then my dad and my Uncle Gene, who worked downtown in downtown New York City, my dad worked at the Federal Building. My dad would take the train in every day from Long Island through Penn Station, going to work and coming home. And in the 1970s, early, especially 1973, my dad and my Uncle Gene would stop off at the Garden and go to Knicks games. Now, normally my dad didn't have a lot of time to do that because he coached me. He coached every game I ever played. Little League basketball as a kid. I was a swimmer, so he took me or picked me up from swim practice, drove me to meets on the weekend. But I had the ultimate sports father. I had the pinnacle, and still do, have the pinnacle of a sports father who just taught me about loyalty, passion, sports. And I would hear the stories about the Knicks. And when I was a young boy, the Knicks won 2 championships, but I don't remember much of it, especially the most recent one in 1973. But I remember my dad coming home through the house after going to those Knicks games, and then he went to a lot of playoff games and in the championship round. And I remember the joy, and I remember the happiness, and I do remember that as a young boy. And it all came full circle for me. So as a Knicks fan, throughout my life, I was known as a diehard Knicks fan. Way before I had the nickname, not real name, JT the Brick. That name was given to me by Jim Rome, the famous syndicated sports talk host, because I was a caller, and I would always call in on the Knicks. And the Knicks were always losing. And the Knicks were always missing shots, and at that time they were throwing up what was called bricks. So I'd always call on the Knicks, and Jim would call me JT the Brick. I was really a caller, JT from La Jolla, but he called me JT the Brick. Fast forward, I won the first ever Jim Rome Smack-Off. That put my entire career and a lot of my life in motion. But remember, I don't call Jim Rome. I'm not involved as a sports talk radio caller. I don't get involved in sports talk radio unless I'm a Knicks fan. Yeah, I was a crazy Yankees fan still too. But back then, back in the day, it was all about the Knicks for me. So I was living in San Diego, California, in and around Pacific and Mission Beach and La Jolla, North PB. And I would just have a passion with a couple of my buddies from back east, and we'd go watch Knicks games. And we watched the Knicks games in 94, where John Starks shot us out of a championship. 99, the Carmelo Anthony years after that. And everybody would look at me and say, to me and a couple of my friends, wow, you came up short again. You didn't win. You couldn't get it done. And I still went back for more. I went back to that punishment year after year after year after year, and I never wavered on my Knicks. They were my team, and they still are. So then I got on radio, and people knew I was a Knicks fan, and the people who listened to me, if you listen to me for 30 minutes or 30 years, it's pretty much this is my team. And I've been kind of putting it in and out of my show throughout my career. Now, locally with my work with the Raiders, I don't do a lot of Knicks talk. And then my national shows, I talk a lot of Knicks, but the Knicks mostly were never relevant. In my 30 years on radio, uninterrupted, 30 years straight, I really only had a handful of times to talk about my Knicks. Eastern Conference Finals, eliminated. Patrick Ewing misses the finger roll. Charles Smith can't put the ball back up. Carmelo Anthony misses a shot, and it was just painful that happened. Then this Knicks team came about. And this Knicks team was a really unique and interesting story in my perspective because I didn't think this Knicks team was an elite team, but I thought the way they built this team around Jalen Brunson and trading for Mikal Bridges and Karl Anthony Towns and the Villanova Four and what they had with Josh Hart, I thought they were on the right path. And I'm like, look, if you just get in the tournament, you might have a chance to win. And the Knicks the last couple of years have gotten into the playoffs, and they've been a pretty good team. And they got beat by Indiana the year before, which was shocking. Boston has always been their nemesis. Boston dating back to Bill Russell, and then through the years of Larry Bird and Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett, owned the Knicks. So you never thought about beating the Celtics because they were better, and let alone the Lakers out west. And the Lakers had dynasties with Magic Johnson, Kobe Bryant, and Shaq. And then all of a sudden a team in San Antonio came around. In the 90s, the San Antonio Spurs with David Robinson. And he got a ring against my Knicks. And then they won 4 more with Tim Duncan. And then, throughout my career, I've been blessed to have a radio presence, sometimes very big, in the Bay Area. And I was there for the Bay Area and a newfound dynasty in the Golden State Warriors. And I watched the Warriors dynasty pretty close and up close. Got access to a lot of those games. And my Knicks weren't even relevant for all that. Then I didn't even get to LeBron James. LeBron James has got 4 rings, 2 in Miami, Cleveland, and L.A. He didn't even want to play for the Knicks. All LeBron had to do was, after his Cleveland contract, say, I want to play in the Mecca, New York City, for the Knicks. And I would have been fine, and the Knicks would have won by now. LeBron James would have won a ring with the Knicks. I don't think there's an argument there. Oh, did I forget the Michael Jordan years? How did I forget that? Michael Jordan owned my Knicks. Matter of fact, my Knicks were good enough to win multiple championships in the Ewing era, and they couldn't get by Michael Jordan. And when they did get by the Bulls, they ran into, Hakeem Olajuwon. So the Knicks have torn at me my entire life, and then now it has changed. Now I get the championship that I've been yearning for 53 years of my life. And it brought tremendous joy to me. I was just back east again to visit my sister, my parents, to see friends that I only have the window to travel now. Not to get too into detail. Once Raiders start in July, we're in lockdown until after the Super Bowl, period. We're off. And the schedule came out this year with the Raiders, and it's just all Sundays. There's not a weekend off. And the bye week's week 13. So I had the ability to go. And my parents, at their age, it was really important. And then I got a chance to go watch games with my nephew, my dad. And then I ended up, at the end of my trip, over the weekend, I ended up in Richmond, Virginia, with about 14 of my friends who I grew up with. About 12 out of the 14 guys I grew up with, I was either in first, second, or third grade with. And I watched that championship game with them, including my cousin Gene. And it brought tears to my eye. Definitely brought tears to my eye. I didn't cry like a baby, but there was a tearful moment or two down the stretch of that game because every game was a heart attack. Every game the Knicks were down 29 or 13. In this last game, they were down again. And you're just sitting there going, oh, my God, they're down. They're getting crushed. But this team was different. They never quit. They never raised the white flag. They never said we're going to lose this game because we want to be fresh for the next game, which we've seen a lot in the history of the NBA. You're out of the game by 22 points, you rest the starters, and you go another day. Not this club. They played their best when they were trailing. And then they started to go on a run like I've never seen. One of the greatest runs in the history of NBA basketball for one individual team. Now, a big topic that is brewing right now on sports radio is this one of the greatest teams of all time? I would say no. I don't think this team is as good as a Warrior team with Steph and Clay and Durant. I don't think it's as good as a Bird, McHale team. It's not better than Magic. It's not. But they had one of the greatest playoff runs of all time. Of all time. With the comebacks, the amount of wins. They didn't lose a game in the month of May. This team at one point could not lose. And on top of not losing, they were winning dramatically, which makes you memorable. So with all of that happening and coming together, I've been on a ride for my whole life with this team. And for the first time, I could say, in over 50 years, I am satisfied. I am proud to be a Knicks fan. This is something that I wanted to experience because you never know if it's ever going to happen. And I was able to experience this over the next couple of days. So I'm going to talk about this because it's my show. And I deserve this because I've been busting my ass with this topic for 30 years. So I deserve this moment, and I will use this bully pulpit, and I will use this platform to engage people on what just happened. Now, one of the things I think I'm very good at is I know that this is your show. It's not mine. Always been that way. It's your show. If you call in, you can call in on anything as long as you keep it clean. On anything. If you keep it in the rail, you can talk about anything. I don't have 7 co-hosts. I don't have 6. I don't have 5. I don't have 4 people behind the glass trying to interrupt me. None of that. It's me. And it's not very hard. You could do this too. But I've been doing this a long time. So I know how to play the hits. And as we sit here on June 15th, 2026, the New York Knicks are world champions. I've never said that in my life as a radio host. And I've been doing this as long as most people have ever done this. Again, 30 years, very lucky and blessed. And for the first time ever in my career, not in my life, but in my career, I could say my team, that my Knicks are world champions. Man, that was a long time. That was a long wait. I do not recommend that to anybody. Raider Nation is going through that right now. Raider Nation, you know exactly what I'm talking about because I'm with you in Raider Nation on the front line. Believe me, I know what this Raiders drought is all about. It is a big one. It is a long one. I was talking to a buddy of mine on this trip who was a Cowboy fan. Very similar to the Knicks. The Knicks were 53 years. When was the last time the Cowboys won? Right? So you have the Seattle Mariners have never won the World Series. The San Diego Padres, currently and even with Tony Gwynn, never won the World Series. I know what a drought is. I covered the curse of the Bambino and the Red Sox drought, maybe the most legendary drought in sports history. In all of sports, in your lifetime, my lifetime, the biggest drought ever, the 86 years of the Red Sox. Right back then, they didn't have wild card teams. The Yankees had dynasties, multiple dynasties. Red Sox got close, 86 with the Mets, and they choked. And finally got through my Yankees, no less. And they started winning a lot. So we know that the Toronto Maple Leafs are going through one of the greatest droughts ever from the 60s. I'll tell you something. That Knick drought was long. It was tough. The only thing I could compare it to in my lifetime is the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills from New York have a rabid fan base. Rabid. They've never won the Super Bowl, and man, have they been close. They lost 4 Super Bowls in a row. So when you look at all of this and what everybody's kind of coming to grips with, and what I like to do is relate it to you. I know you're not a Knicks fan. I have a few that are in here in my chat. We're live on YouTube. My Knicks gear has not arrived yet. My beautiful bride went out and bought Knicks gear. My sons don't get any because they've ridiculed me at times. My oldest is a Laker fan, diehard. Kobe is the screensaver on his phone. I could not have that bonding moment with my oldest son. We were at the hockey game yesterday. He is not a Knicks fan. But for the Knicks fans that are out there, come find me on multiple platforms as I continue to do this. Here is the final call with Mike Breen, who's the voice of ESPN. But how about this? He was also the local voice of the New York Knicks. Here's Mike Breen on the call. All right, we'll get to that coming up here in a minute here. We have it. We'll get to that because it's really important that we play that. So that's Mike Breen on the call. Do we have that? Is that ready to go?
Fox to Wemby. Wemby tries a three, puts it up, off the mark. Anunoby the rebound. It's over. It's over. Knicks fans, this is not a dream. Your long, long wait has ended. Go ahead and cry. After 53 years, the Knicks are finally NBA champions once again.
All right, so that is Mike Breen on the call, and the Knicks are champions again, and I am really excited about that. So when we take a look at all of this, if you look at the Knicks and you'd like to participate in the broadcast today or tomorrow, yeah, this is a 2-day topic. Yep, this is 2 day. This is going to take 2 days. So if you want to go shopping at the mall, if you want to go to the beach, do your thing. Okay, there's not going to be a deep dive on Kirk Cousins at minicamp. Not happening. This is going to be about the Knicks. You can jump in and talk about a couple of topics. Where do you rank this team all time? You have to rank them all time. You have to rank them all time as one of the all-time great individual teams. Let me repeat. You must rank this Knicks team all time as one of the greatest individual one-time champion. We've had 7 different champions in 7 years. They are better than all of them. The last 7 teams, the Denver Nuggets, right? Denver with Jokic. Go down the list of the teams that won. OKC with SGA. Go down all the teams that have won in the last 7 years. This Knicks team lapped them. They did stuff that none of those teams could do. So where are you going to put them here? You can't put them in a dynasty. They didn't win 3. Remember, if you're going to be a dynasty, you have to win 3. 3 in a row. 3 out of 4, yes, that's a dynasty. 3 out of 5, yes. 3 out of 5, I'll consider a dynasty. 3 out of 7 is not a dynasty. Okay, 3 out of 10 is not a dynasty. A dynasty is something that you do in succession. The Knicks haven't done anything. They won 1. I don't think they're going to win a lot of championships with this team. I don't. I think they got 1. Maybe they get another one in the next 2 years. Maybe they get 2 in 4 years. Great. They could get Giannis. They could get other players. But they're not a dynasty. But where do you put them historically in a 1-year run? I'd like to know that from you at 702-365-9200. Also, one of my most favorite topics of all time, Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson becomes a made man in New York. If you look at the New York hierarchy of sports, legendary champions, legendary. Yogi Berra won 10 World Series and 3 MVPs. Sorry, Jalen Brunson. You haven't won 10 rings and 3 MVPs. You're not Yogi Berra. Joe DiMaggio, Mickey Mantle. You might have heard of a guy named Babe Ruth. Sorry, Jalen Brunson. You're not Babe Ruth. Derek Jeter. Derek Jeter. He's on the Mount Rushmore, possibly, of great New York sports winners. You might laugh at Eli Manning. No one in New York does. Eli Manning won 2 Super Bowls and beat Tom Brady in both of them. He is an icon in New York. They introduce him at the Knicks game, standing ovation up to the rafters. Okay? Is he Eli Manning? Well, Super Bowl's bigger than an NBA title, but you get what I'm saying. He surpasses Carmelo Anthony. I hate to say it because he was my favorite player, Patrick Ewing. Jalen Brunson just passed Patrick Ewing all time. That ain't easy to do. So Jalen Brunson did something that I love in sports. I love in sports. When you win 1 championship, 1 at that level, and do what he did, you now become a member of the pantheon of legends in all of sports. He's done. He's going to get a statue. My dad's 88 years old. I talked to him. He said, he's going to get a statue. What do you mean, Dad? Well, if they get around to putting statues around the Garden, which I love statues. They got 40 at Staples Center, right? I don't know why they don't. But we'll get to that coming up on the other side. We don't have to go to break, so we're good. Looking low at that, we don't have to go to break. Follow me, we're good. Okay, so when it gets to Jalen Brunson is an icon going forward now. I think he's a made man. He's done. He doesn't have to do anything the rest of his life other than go out and do this lap in life and take it all in. So I love that topic if you want to do that also. So we are sitting at a point now where the Knicks have done something that is very unique. Now, you might say JT's a homer. He's been talking for 20 minutes, and he's talking about his team. Yes, that's exactly what we're doing. Okay? And when I look at this topic, I understand that this is not live New York City radio, but it's a national topic because they just won. And I definitely like to get your opinion on where you think this team, as Big D, and he's great. He's one of our founding bricklayers here, has Brunson and Messier. That's perfect. Mark Messier won one ring with the Rangers. It defined the New York Rangers of the modern era. Jalen Brunson did the same thing. Exactly what Mark Messier did, other than the fact that Mark Messier guaranteed it all. So this is an NBA show today, mixed in with hockey. I'm pretty bitter that I went to the hockey game last night. Not bitter because the Golden Knights and the NHL got me a credential, and I can't thank them enough for that. Oh, my God, I get to go to that game. And I ran into a lot of people, but I'm just shocked that the Golden Knights played that poorly. I can't imagine you playing that poorly in a game that meant so much, and I'll just say that they ran out of gas. They just ran out of gas. So when we come back, we'll get into the Knicks and the Golden Knights and whatever you want to hit on. 702-365-9200. Remember, in the summertime, I get cranky when I'm working and I'm on the air. This is work, light work, and people don't react, right? I get cranky for that, especially in the summer. When in the summer it slows down. It ain't slowing down today. My Knicks are world champs, and we're talking about it. JT back with you as we continue. It's a Knicks celebration day today. Also want to tip my cap to the Carolina Hurricane, who came into Vegas and punched Vegas in the mouth, took the cup and took it to Omnia nightclub and Catch restaurant and all over our city and shoved it in our face. Now, look, we don't have a lot of sports teams here yet. There's no NBA. There's a football team here, the greatness of the Raiders. The Aces are here. The only thing I can even compare that to is if the Aces was in the WNBA Finals and they lost to a team and that team just decided to take the trophy up and down the strip. It is very rare that it'll ever happen. Very rare. And the Golden Knights have lost 2 Stanley Cup Finals on the ice at T-Mobile in front of Vegas fans. And I saw a lot of Carolina fans in the building. I was there. There were a lot of Carolina fans there, and that's what happens in an elimination game. Carolina fans buy tickets, and they have a rabid fan base. And I'm going to spend a lot of time, not a lot, but the next day, this show, on my national show tonight on SiriusXM and tomorrow, talking about how grateful I was for this Golden Knights season. It was unbelievable. It was amazing. They were great. And they weren't great in the regular season. They were great in the postseason. John Tortorella coming in. John Tortorella, I thought, was going to deliver a cup. Once he turned it around here, it didn't happen. But most about the Knicks today, if you want to talk about the impact of this Knicks team in basketball history, please help me with this and put it in perspective. 702-365-9200 is the number. Where do you put an individual team? How do you rate an individual team all time? You'll see it in baseball. Like the Marlins will win the World Series, and you're like, man, how'd the Marlins win the World Series? Well, they had Josh Beckett, and they had really good players, and they just won, and they put together a great season. It happens, but normally those teams aren't historically legendary. This Knicks team has become historically, over 1 year, great. I was watching my friend Stephen A. Smith today, and we were texting back and forth about this, and he's really excited. He knows I'm a big Knick fan, and he's probably the most famous Knick fan other than Spike Lee and Ben Stiller. The Knicks won 15 of the final 16 games. They had a plus 283-point differential. That's the best in any single postseason in NBA history. The Knicks. So they won 15 out of 16. They didn't lose in the entire month of May. You got to put them somewhere. You can put them on your Mount Rushmore of a NBA team for a single season. I wouldn't. I think there was still better teams. Any of the Jordan teams, any of the Magic Johnson and Bird teams, any of those. Any of the Duncan, Ginobili, Parker teams, any of those teams are better than the Knicks. But look, the Portland Trail Blazers won with Bill Walton. right? That was a really good championship for Portland. Bill Walton, they had an unbelievable season. Not as good as the Knicks did this year. No way, no how. Go around Oklahoma City, as I mentioned. You go to any team that's won the title. I think this Knicks team is better than any Miami Heat team ever to win the title, including LeBron James and Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. They didn't do this. They didn't do anything close to this. They didn't have a run like this. So I think that's really impressive. And again, we're a sports talk show today. This is an historic question I'm asking you. Where do you put this up there? Where do you put this team? Oh, and as someone pointed out here in our chat, as we're streaming live on YouTube, and brought to you by the DeCastroverde Law Group. Want to get that in. It's Mendoza Monday. Every Monday show from here on out. Mendoza Monday, brought to you by the DeCastroverde Law Group. If you get into an accident or injured, Brothers Win, thebrotherswin.com. And every Monday from here on out, as long as we have the DeCastroverde brothers, who are unbelievable, it's Mendoza Monday, if you want to do that. I've been apologizing to Mike Brown, the head coach of the Knicks, for a month. So I know for people saying, what about Mike Brown? No, I've apologized, and I'll do it again if you want to hear it. I apologize to Mike Brown. One of the biggest misses I've had in my career. When he got hired, I was furious. I didn't even think he deserved an interview. I just think he's a bench coach at the end of the bench, a good assistant coach. He's now a made man. Mike Brown is set for the rest of his life. He delivered the Knicks championship after 53 years. All right, let's get out to Ben in Denver. Ben, you're up. Appreciate you being patient. Go ahead.
Hey, JT, what's going on? First of all, congratulations, JT. You deserve it. I mean, you're a New Yorker, and, you're not one of these bandwagon guys. I mean, if you're a true New Yorker, this is awesome and great. We try to go out to New York once a year because we love it. We love the trendy bars there. We love the fashion there. We love it. I'm from LA originally, so for me, I go back to Shaq and Kobe, and then Kobe and Powell. As far as this team historically, where it ranks with the lot, I don't think the NBA is pretty weak itself. And even more so, I think the East. Mm-hmm. They went through Atlanta, which had nobody. They went through, the Sixers, which are hobbling out there. And then they went through, Harden, who's 45 years old or whatever. I'm exaggerating, but so they really didn't go through a whole lot of teams to get there. Mm. And then once they got there, they ran into a guy, Wemby, who, to me, he lacks a lot of skill. Now, he's a big guy. He's tall, and I think he's going to get better. But right now, he lacks a lot, good footwork. I think he lacks quite a bit of skill. But, so I don't know. Historically, I don't think they would be able to beat, Shaq and Kobe. I don't think they would even beat, Kobe and Powell. Mm-hmm. I don't even think they would beat some of those Jazz teams that they lost to the Bulls with Stockton and Malone, the Houston Rockets with Olajuwon. So to me, they're pretty far down. But for New York, I think it's great for New York. And if you're a Knicks fan.
Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. It opens up a line. We should never have an open line. 702-365-9200 on the Knicks championship. Also the Carolina Hurricanes championship, too. I pulled teeth. I was like a dentist last month in the studio, a dentist, trying to get hockey fans to call in. It was embarrassing. It was embarrassing. This town is a hockey radio town. A joke. A joke on this show. It was, at least. I tried. I was hoping we'd have another game. I was hoping we'd have a special edition Tuesday show for Game 7. We're not going to have that. Yeah, the caller makes a good point. Ben in Denver makes a really good point. When you look at what the Knicks were able to do, they have the right to say that they're one of the greatest individual one-year championship teams ever because they have all the documentation to back it up. It's all right there. I deal with stats for a living. My business is dealing with stats. And the final call and the final moment of a game. Pretty easy if you get it right. Now there's a lot of gray area in sports. Well, the team lost because the ref blew the call. The team lost because the quarterback choked. The team lost because he dropped the ball in the end zone. Yeah, all of that. That's stuff we have to talk about, and we put it into the show and we give it some analysis to try to judge sporting teams all time. That's what we do. You cannot judge this Knicks team in regards to not being elite because they did things that only the Steph Curry Warriors team did. They did things that the caller mentioned Elijah on and Drexler. They did not do this. They did not they did not lose a game. They didn't have an undefeated streak in the month of May. They didn't have the differential that the Knicks had. They didn't have the comebacks and that. Now, something I've been dying to say for 10 days, which was about 7 on the radio. I've been dying to say this. The San Antonio Spurs proved to be one of the dumbest basketball teams ever assembled in the last 2 weeks. I'm talking flat out stupid, dumb, reprimand them. Do you know how many big leads they had where they didn't even have to shoot the basketball? They could have had shot clock violations, held the ball for 24 seconds, didn't even shoot. Give it back to the Knicks and they would have won. Maybe would have won the series. But what'd they do? My biggest pet peeve in all of the NBA, even higher up than load management and tanking, which I hate. It's when a team has a big lead and they keep shooting threes. I am a professor of that topic at Columbia University. I have an MBA in that topic. How stupid is De'Aaron Fox? He might be the dumbest basketball player that I've seen in the modern era. The Spurs are killing the Knicks. They're up 13. They're up 29. They're up 20. And De'Aaron Fox gets the ball and comes down and goes, oh, I'm going to shoot a three. What? What? What are you doing? And the coach couldn't control him. Wemby should have shook him like a rag doll and said no more shooting. And how about Victor Wembanyama, who I think is a hell of a player? Wow. He looks like a young Lou Alcindor, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. How dumb is he hanging out at the three-point line? Where'd you hear that before? Oh, you heard it on the JT the Brick Show for years. Normally, I'm pissed off at the Knicks because they have Karl Anthony Towns shooting threes. Victor Wembanyama, with an 11-point lead, is shooting three-pointers, missing. The Knicks are grabbing the rebound going, what are we doing with the ball? Oh, we got a chance? Let's go score. And then the Spurs come down, and they're up 8. And it's 4 seconds on the shot clock, and De'Aaron Fox shoots a three and misses. The Knicks grab the rebound and go, oh, mother of God, sweet baby Jesus, we got the ball. We're not supposed to get the ball. Let's go. Brunson and 1. You have to be stupid not to understand that brand of basketball. For decades. And let's play the final call again. Let's play the final call again if we can one more time. Excuse me. On the Knicks here. I want you to hear this final call from Mike Breen. Here we go.
Fox to Wemby. Wemby tries a three, puts it up, off the mark. Anunoby the rebound. It's over. It's over. Knicks fans, this is not a dream. Your long, long wait has ended. Go ahead and cry. After 53 years, the Knicks are finally NBA champions once again.
That's ABC. You know why I wanted you to hear that again? There's a reason I played that again. It's because Wemby missed a three. What's Wemby doing taking a three? I know the game's probably going to be over. You don't have someone else, Harper, to take the three. You don't have a guard who can shoot the three. What happens if Wemby's under the basket and those guys shoot a three and he grabs a rebound and gets fouled? It's N1. It's a 1-point game. Right? This is the stupidest basketball team you could imagine. As I tweeted out, De'Aaron Fox should get a full share of the Knicks championship and a ring. They should go to De'Aaron Fox on ring night and fly him in from San Antonio and give him a ring. Because he's the reason why the Knicks won in 5 games. I've never seen anything that stupid. You got to be pretty dumb to shoot threes in this league when you have a lead. And you might be driving saying, what did he say? Let me repeat it again. When you have a lead of double digits, you don't shoot threes unless you have Steph Curry. Steph Curry should be the only player in the league who is allowed to shoot a three-pointer with a 10-point lead or more. And the Spurs did it every freaking possession. Every time they got the ball, they went reckless and shot threes. And look, they made a lot of them. But you have to have some form of coaching in a relationship with your players where you sit them down and say, look, you just can't do this. You can't do this anymore. You just can't. So San Antonio, I thought, was pretty aggressive when they didn't have to be aggressive. I thought they were very over the top when they didn't have to be over the top. I thought I was going to take Knick calls all day. I took one from a non-Knick fan in Denver. Wow. I can't get a new job at this stage of my career, so I'm just going to continue to do what I do best. Let's get some basketball fans in here. The NBA Finals just ended, and it's Monday. There's no Raider talk today. There's no cornerback on the Raiders who might make the team that I'm interested in today. Sorry, Raider Nation Radio. Today's about the Knicks and the Golden Knights losing Game 6 at home. Okay, so gravitate to the biggest topic in the world today in sports. Ooh, other than the World Cup, which I got to get to, Spain. Spain doesn't score a goal. Ooh, I watched that today. I was looking for Spain to play the beautiful game. They weren't able to do it. 702-365-9200. If you want to get in on the significance of what the Knicks were able to do and how the Knicks were able to pulling it off and where you put them, where do you put them in the pantheon of single championship teams? Shaun Powell from NBA.com will join us at the top of the hour. He had great coverage on this. We are brought to you by Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers. What a great place to tailgate. Not only go to their stores, but to go to Raising Cane's, the best chicken fingers in the world, and they make the sauce in-store every day.
It's been good. I've been able to celebrate. I've also been able to spend time with some family and actually kind of wind down and realize what the hell actually happened. And it's a good feeling.
Yes, that is Jalen Brunson. He was on with Stephen A. today on First Take. The Knicks were on Good Morning America with Michael Strahan. I think they were on the Today Show. They're all over the place. I believe the parade is on Thursday. JT back with you. Yes, for today and tomorrow, I'm JT the Knick, not JT the Brick, because that's really ties in. My wife came up with that, as she knows. The Brick came about because of the Knicks, and now was I always supposed to be JT the Knick, not JT the Brick? Who would know? But it's stuck, and I'm happy that I'm able to talk to you today, wherever you are around the country. If you're watching us on YouTube, if you're listening to us at LV Sports Network or any of our other platforms, thanks a lot. We're brought to you by Grimaldi's, the best pizza I've ever had. I miss Grimaldi's. I was back east, and I was getting pizza here and there, mostly chicken wings. When you're back east, I was telling the crew here, everybody who's in our chat, that in the last 10 days I was in Rochester, New York, Geneseo State University, New Paltz, New York, New York City. I spent a day in New York City, half a day in New York City, Long Island, New York, and Richmond, Virginia. So I had chicken wings at a few spots, which were famous for that. No pizza, and some of the greatest bagels in the world. But I was there for the vibe of what the Knicks. I didn't go to a game at the Garden. I had one game I could have went, but I wasn't going to pay $4,000 a ticket. People were asking me, well, can't you just get in? I'm like, come on, man. Do you know anything? No, you just can't get in. If you want a credential, you got to be credentialed through the NBA, and I wasn't credentialed because we don't have a team in Vegas yet. And just to pop in there, and those tickets were really $4,000 to $6,000 upper decks. 3,800 in the upper deck. It was that crazy. It was that difficult to even go to a Knick game. But had a lot of fun watching. And when you're watching with friends and family, sometimes it's just a little bit different. It was great. Let me get out to Eddie in Vegas on 920. Eddie, thanks for calling in. What's happening today?
Go New York, baby.
Thank you, Eddie.
I've been waiting for these Knickerbockers. Since the 70s. I'm 69 years old. And I said, we got to get a chip before I die. And we got it, baby.
You're gonna live a long life, Eddie. You're gonna have a chance for others, but it definitely is one of those things. If you're a fan, that you've been hunting this ring down for so long, and now to just get it and put it behind us as Knick fans, it really feels good.
Oh yeah, believe me. And my son said, Dad, we got to get a chip. And believe me, I raised him to be a Knicks fan. Mm-hmm. I'm originally from the Bronx.
Okay.
And he was born here in Vegas. But he's a Knicks fan all the way. He bleeds blue, believe me, just like his dad.
Well, did you go to the NBA Cup
And
when
I'm so excited.
did you go to the NBA Cup when it was here? The Knicks won the NBA Cup. Did you go to that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
I had work, but my son and my grandson did.
Good.
They went to both games.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I didn't put much into that, but they beat the Spurs, and they beat the Spurs kind of easily. They didn't have to go 6 or 7 games, so maybe that had a little bit to do with it.
Right.
But congratulations, Eddie. Good to hear you, man. I can tell in your voice
All
it's
right.
big for you and your family, especially your grandson. I'm happy he was able to experience with his grandfather. That's special.
Oh, yeah. That's very special. Thanks a lot, JP.
Yeah, thank you, man. Appreciate the call. That made my day. Thank you, man. That made my day. Thanks for the call. Nice to hear someone who can tie it into their grandkid. As my father, who's 88 years old, I was just back with him, was talking to his grandsons about it. Nice when you can tie in winning with family. That's there's nothing better than that. When you can tie in winning with family. You know, I just want to spend the last few minutes talking about the Golden Knights because we have an NBA guest at the top of the hour. One of the things I struggle with is because I really enjoy the Golden Knights. I'm a fan, but we cover the team here. I'm biased. I root for the team, period. Just like I'm biased with the Raiders. Shocking. Shocking. You know, I root for teams, not a journalist. And when I look at what happened to the Golden Knights, it really took me about, I don't know, overnight to go to bed and wake up in the morning and not feel that crushed by them losing the way they did at home and getting shut out by Carolina. Because throughout the course of the year when they weren't playing well, and if they played in the Eastern Conference, they wouldn't even have made the playoffs. But I knew how good of a team they were. I told you all year long this was a team built with tremendous NHL All-Stars and Olympians. The Golden Knights had 5 players on their team playing the gold medal game for the Olympics. Mark Stone lost in the gold medal game for Canada, and Mark Stone lost in the Stanley Cup Final. I mean, those guys went through a lot. They went through a lot. So when I woke up today, I had a cup of coffee, sat outside, and I said, how could you get mad at the Golden Knights? Just disappointed. Just disappointed that they lost because it looked like after game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final, they were going to win the Stanley Cup. It really did. Everybody around town was like, we got this. We're peaking. They're not going to be able to stop us. We're better. We have better players, and they couldn't do it. So Carolina was able to outlast Vegas. Man, Vegas looked tired the last 2 games. They looked spent. They were out of it. John Tortorella put them in a position to win. Last night, I never was so disappointed as I was last night with Jack Eichel, who missed an open net. And the guy plays 200 feet. He's a really good player. He's the best player on the Golden Knights, no debate. But he ran out of gas. He had nothing left in the tank in the third period. And this team and franchise gave us everything they could. Everything they could possibly give us, they gave us. So I want to congratulate the Golden Knights and Bill Foley on an incredible season, an incredible postseason. Look at all the revenue they made in the playoffs. They even got a Game 6 at home. But it just feels like they ran out of gas. They ran out of gas. As Rob says here in the chat, VGK had a good run, but ran out of gas. That's exactly what happened. And a lot of those players had to play in the Olympics, and they had to be in Milan, and they had to travel back and forth. They did not have the legs late in the Stanley Cup Final. It breaks you down. It breaks you down playing that deep into the postseason. So if you'd like to congratulate the Golden Knights on a good season, if you're a season ticket holder, I think that would be appropriate to do. Las Vegas has been a sports radio town for a long time, but mostly nationally. We always had national shows out of Vegas, not a lot of local bite. And this hockey team has a long way to go to get this city and sports radio really over the top with their passion towards the team. We have a great radio station, Ryan the Hockey Guy. He's at every game. Dan Duva, Gary Lawless, Steve Cofield, other shows talk hockey. But we are nowhere near where we need to be. We are nowhere near being a hockey town when it comes to media. And we got good media covering the team. The guys who, Ed Graney in the press box, all the guys who cover the team, fantastic. Fantastic. But the fans, this is not New York, Toronto, and Philadelphia or Boston. It's just a place that has to be dragged along and reminded of what we're doing. And yesterday, after I left Beer House, and I was walking with my son from Beer House through T-Mobile Plaza, and I saw hundreds of Carolina fans, I said, oh boy, this ain't good. Reminds me of what I saw when the Washington Capitals with Alex Ovechkin came to town and won the Cup. This city, everyone should be required to have a driver's license if they're going to drive. And in this city, everybody should be required to take a class on how not to sell your tickets to the opposing team. We are pathetic in this city at that. We are pathetic at the amount of season ticket holders. I'm not talking about randos. I'm talking about season ticket holders for the Raiders and the Golden Knights who sell their tickets to the most important games. And the Raiders haven't had a lot of important games because they haven't been in the playoffs at home. But what are you Golden Knight fans doing selling your tickets to Carolina fans? I guess the money's that important, huh? Well, I'm not the ticket police. I was in there yesterday. My son spent his hard-earned money, and we came up short. But thanks again to VGK. All right, JT, back hour number 2 of the show. And back from a little R&R back east. Got a chance to see my family. Now I'm back in Vegas, and I'm thrilled to be here on the radio coming off a Knicks championship. I love the Knicks. That's been a long time coming. Probably my biggest passion project of my life as a fan was waiting for the Knicks to win a championship, so they finally were able to do that, and excited about that. So I'm celebrating that today and probably a little bit tomorrow if you want to jump in on that and get in here. So we're excited about if you're an NBA fan and you want to talk about the significance of what the Knicks were able to do historically. That's what sports radio is all about, right? History. Where do you put this Knicks team historically? I'm kind of feeling my way through that. I'm feeling my way through it because I know that they've done things with this championship that no other NBA team has ever done. Literally none of them have been able to do. But I also know that they're not as great as Shaq and Kobe and not as great as Bird or Magic's teams. So I'm trying to figure out where I would do that. I think it's a fun topic here because anybody who watches the NBA understands history. It's just like a baseball team. A baseball team comes out of nowhere, wins the World Series. Do you put them up there with some of the greatest baseball teams ever? Probably not. Probably not. But if they swept all their rounds, you got to give them some type of credit for doing that. Whenever a team does something, and it was unexpected for the Knicks to win the way they won. The way they did it was unexpected. Then you have to think about them different historically. Shaun Powell, kind enough to join us. What a great content provider at NBA.com. And, Shaun, I want to start with that because as a diehard Knicks fan waiting my whole adult life for this, I'm trying to put in perspective how great this individual team is historically in the pantheon of the sport. How do you see it?
Well, what's amazing is that this team is not homegrown. Everybody was either acquired through a trade or a free agent signing. The exception is Mitchell Robinson, but he was a second-round pick. Usually you see NBA champions, there's usually 2 or 3 draft picks who came up and improved, and stuff with the team. So this is built differently. However, New York gravitated to this team right away. First of all, they're mainly a group of good guys. They resonate well. They come across as, humble, hardworking people, pretty much reflective of the city of New York. And again, they took, San Antonio's best punch through 3 quarters for all those games and relentlessly found a way to win. So you have to salute them for that. I don't know if you can compare them to a lot of other champions in the past because they're all different makeup, different personalities and everything. But the Knicks came through in a way. They've always found a way to win this postseason, and that you can say about them.
Yeah, Shaun Powell is our guest. The fact that they won 15 of the final 16 games, didn't lose in the month of May, had a 283-plus point differential, the best in any single postseason in the history of the sport, elevates them, Shaun, to some level. Now, I wouldn't put them over the Curry dynasty or the Duncan dynasty or Shaq and Kobe or Bird and Magic, as I've been saying for the last couple of days. I don't put them there, but What is it like when a team has the argument to say, no, we did something that those great teams didn't do. We deserve our flowers.
Well, that's their calling card, and I certainly will give them the respect for that. Anytime you can accomplish, and you posted some great numbers right there. Anytime you can do something like that, and that puts you in some sort of historical perspective, I think you did something special. Now, again, look, we're a society that likes to compare the eras, teams, players. It makes good for arguments and things like that. I always subscribe to, if I never saw someone play or a team play, I can't judge them. I never saw Wilt Chamberlain play, Bill Russell, and all the greats in the past. I came in with Magic and Bird. And I think those teams, those championship teams in the 80s, I think are far superior because look at the competition they beat to win that champ. Magic had to get through Bird. Yeah. Jordan had to get through, So I look at it that way. But the Knicks should stand on their own achievements, and it's special.
Shaun Powell is our guest. Great job at NBA.com. He's got a ton of content coming off of the finals here. You wrote Brunson Seals final MVP with a 45-point effort. Now, that is interesting. Eastern Conference Playoffs MVP, NBA Finals MVP with a 45er. Okay, we're talking. Now, that doesn't happen pretty much at all, and he was able to do that. So what does that do for Brunson historically? And if you want to tie it into the fact that he did it in the number one media market for the Knicks, where there were a lot of people who didn't believe in him when he got to the Knicks, how do you put a bow on what Brunson did this year?
Well, I try not to be a prisoner of the moment. I try to add some perspective and nuance. As a matter of fact, on the NBA's website tomorrow, I ranked the last 10 finals MVPs based on how much of the team they had to carry and, of course, their performance. And I have Giannis in 2021. I have him number one. Wow. I just think he was unbelievable. And he closed out with a 50-piece. Okay, and he had that amazing block on DeAndre Ayton, and the Bucks had to come from 2-0 down. He carried that team, and then I would put Steph Curry, beating Boston. Klay Thompson was not the same Klay Thompson. He didn't have Kevin Durant anymore, and he carried the Warriors over the Celtics. I would put Brunson like around number 5 in the last 10 years. He did not shoot well in this series, really. However, he made an important shot in the fourth quarter of every game in which the Knicks won. And, of course, he closed very well, too.
Shaun Powell is our guest as we continue. So let me ask you about Wemby, because I got a special place in my heart for San Antonio. I like the fans. I've been down there a lot. I'm not a journalist. And I looked at Wemby, and I'm like, I would love him to be a Knick down the road. I'm always fascinated when in smaller markets, and San Antonio is a different, smaller market because they're a historically great basketball market. But they re-sign their players, and Wemby's the type of player as a Knicks fan, when he becomes free, I know he could have his bird rights and make more in San Antonio, but that would be a guy that I'd love to see become a Knick when he's 26 or 27, and it probably won't happen. But his behavior with some of the hard fouls, the elbow earlier in the playoffs, some of the hard hits on Brunson there in the finals, people are making a big deal about him not shaking hands after the end. That's not stats. That's not basketball. But how do you think Wemby came out through this overall? Because he thought they were the better team, and he made it clear at the press conference that he thought they were better, and he came up significantly short.
Well, I think his profile was probably better going into the series than what emerged from the series. I think everybody could agree with that. Performance-wise, particularly, he went stretches where he missed shots, missed free throws, miscalculated that bad pass, a couple games ago. And then in the press conferences, look, I'm going to give him a pass from this standpoint. English is a second language, and people will say that, oh, he's a smart guy, he knows what he's saying. Yeah, but sometimes the translation is probably not what you think. So look. And the other way I'm going to judge him is everything leading up to this point. He always said the right things. Smart guy, mature, all those sort of things. And it's easy, again, to be a person of the moment and try to paint someone as a bad person and disrespectful and things like that. But were they saying that like after the Oklahoma series? Well, I mean, if you're not saying that leading up to this, why would all of a sudden you suddenly change? You think someone just turned evil overnight? I wouldn't say so. I always judge person over the course of an action, not just in maybe a bad moment. look, he's 22 years old.
Mm-hmm.
He's on the biggest stage. He didn't always, respond the right way or anything like that. Give him time to grow from this experience, and let's see what happens next year.
We're wrapping it up with Shaun Powell. Find all of his content at NBA.com. I thought the Spurs at one point, in my opinion, became one of the dumbest teams I've ever seen when it came to shooting threes with the lead. Shaun, it is one of the biggest pet peeves I've had for years in the NBA, no matter the uniform, the team, or the league. When you are up by 8, 10, 12, 20, and you're taking threes and giving the team that you're beating badly the opportunity to get back in the game because of poor shot selection, I'm sure the numbers will say that maybe other teams did this. I don't remember another team doing it as badly as this version of the Spurs, who had multiple big leads and they shot the Knicks back into the game.
There have been countless times over the course of an NBA season where I will go out pregame and watch players warm up. And never do I see a player practicing a mid-range shot.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no. They're all shooting threes, jacking up threes. And I say to myself, why aren't you practicing an 18-footer, a 15-footer? When those threes don't go down, then what are you going to do? You're going to try to force your way to the rim? And because your muscle memory is not trained to shoot a 15-footer. There's going to be times in the game when that space on the floor is wide open, and yet instinctively you will do a step-back three anyway. And I think it just goes to show what you saw from the Spurs in that situation is pretty much reflective of the NBA as a whole. I mean, look, I think the three-pointer is a great, great weapon. But why is it your only weapon? Why don't you practice being comfortable all over the floor rather than one spot? But that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
I agree with you. The Spurs fell in love with the three-pointer. They made them in the first half, but it came to bite them in the second half.
Shaun, finally, where do you look at the Knicks going forward with contracts? They gave up, 5 first-rounders for Bridgers? The draft equity, I don't think they have a lot. Brunson took a discount. Is Brunson going to want to be made whole with more money down the road? OG Anunoby is underpaid and a great player. And, the Knicks will always want to be in the hunt if they can recruit good players, which they've never been able to do. They haven't been able to recruit a Giannis yet. Durant. Kobe, when Kobe was thinking about free agency, all the greats, they haven't been able to go to New York. Are the Knicks going to reload with this team, with their great team chemistry and Mike Brown? Or do you think the Knicks will kind of look to upgrade and maybe go out and get a better player down the road? What's their future look like?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to go big game hunting. I think they'll do pretty much what they did the last trade deadline and got Landry Shamet, who played very well for them, and Jose, who also had big moments for them in the playoffs. I don't think they're going to touch their core. First of all, they feel that, hey, we're coming off the championship. Why should we? Let everybody try to beat us. So I don't see a panic move. I don't see Giannis going there. And you mentioned about not able to get big players. I don't think a lot of the big players want to play for the New York, and very few of them want to play in New York, even for Brooklyn. I just think players find a comfort zone in a smaller media market, and they don't have to take as much crap. The cost of living is much lower. But look, credit the Knicks. They found a way to get around all of that to win a championship.
I'm looking forward to all your content, especially leading up to the parade and everything else that's happening with the Knicks and the rest of the league at NBA.com. Thanks for doing this, Shaun. I appreciate you.
Hey, anytime. Appreciate you.
You got it. Shaun Powell, NBA.com. All right, so that was nice to talk to him and put everything in perspective, and that's what I've been looking for today from you as you're out there listening. If you want to call in at 702-365-9200, how do you put this into perspective? Right, the Carolina Hurricanes had one in 20 years. Rob Brindamore was a player, now he's a coach. 20 years, that's a long time. How do you put their win in perspective? Well, they had really the same identical numbers as the Knicks. The Hurricanes' numbers were similar to the Knicks. Amount of games won, how they won, how many sweeps they had in the postseason. Very similar. But I don't think people are going to look back at the Carolina Hurricane and say, well, this team was as good as Lemieux or Gretzky or one of these other historically great teams. Maybe they are. That's why we have sports radio. Sports radio is the last place where you can debate this because you can't do it on ESPN anymore. The talking heads and the people that are there, don't give the audience an opportunity to give your voice. They don't. No one cares what you think. They care what you think from the people you're watching. So I like to see the fact that when you look at things that just happened, team just won the World Series. I thought Toronto was better than the Dodgers in the World Series. They were playing better. They had more opportunities to win the World Series than the Dodgers had. They did. They could have put the Dodgers down and stepped on their throat multiple times. They didn't do it. So the Dodgers were the better team. They won the World Series. But where do you put that Dodger team historically? Well, it's not one of the greatest teams of all time because Toronto had them beat in Game 7. And the Dodgers last year were a wild card team. They didn't win 122 games. They weren't a great team. They weren't as good as the Padres in the regular season. They were a wild card team. But they won the World Series. So that Dodger team, even though it could be a part of a dynasty, right, eventually it could be a part of a dynasty, that wasn't a great Dodger team. They were an underachieving team that ended up winning the World Series, which erases, follow me here, erases all their underachieving, all of the mistakes, everything they didn't do right, and everybody doesn't remember. 8 years from now, no one's going to remember that kind of Leffer didn't take a lead off third base, and he was out by a half a fingernail, and he could have won the World Series in Toronto. They're just going to remember that Ohtani's got 4 World Series when he should have had 3. So the Knicks team, they overachieved. You know, the Knicks, they overachieved. I appreciate Fabian bringing up that for those who attended the hands-only CPR event at Allegiant Stadium on Saturday, I appreciate that. Dr. Singh is a longtime friend of mine. I was not in town. He knew I wasn't in town to help promote that and be a part of it. And I heard it was fabulous as they were going for the world record in CPR. I thought that was fantastic. Another great event because Allegiant Stadium was built. Another great event because Allegiant Stadium was built and they could go do that. Joe from Las Vegas on these season ticket holders selling their tickets. How do you see it, Joe?
I think it's disgusting. I've been a season ticket holder since they started. I don't sell any of my tickets. I go to all the games and stuff. I spend my $3,600 a year, and I don't miss a game for my parking pass and my 2 tickets. I did spend $1,600 on the third game for the Golden Knights, and in that double overtime, they were out of gas. The third period, they were out of gas. I'm surprised we won that game. We got another easy goal from their guy getting it into net for us and stuff. But I knew at that game it was all over because Carolina was out skating us. Even in Game 3, they were out skating us.
Well, let me ask you this. I want to get back to Joe, what you initially said. Hockey season tickets are different than the Raiders or football teams. You know, in football, you have your section. You sit with your section people. But I have season tickets, and there's some people in my section I've never talked to, never met. It's different at a hockey game, right? Your season tickets and the fans around you, you know them on a first-name basis. So if you see Carolina fans sitting next to you in the Stanley Cup Final, you know that your seatmates sold their tickets. Is he there? He left. Okay. I don't know why he left. I'm trying to do a talk show. I'm trying to talk to people. He left. I thought that was a really important question. All right, so my bad on that. When you sell season tickets, you're not a scoundrel. You don't deserve to be arrested. But certain teams are keeping track of who's selling their tickets. You know, they have these apps and face recognition, but mostly on your apps in the secondary markets, all the teams, right, like they did in San Antonio. They made Spike Lee couldn't sit on the court. You notice that? He had to sit, lower level up against it, but behind the bench. But you have ways of keeping certain fans out. You do. But when you sell your season tickets, here's a better way for me to frame this. How do you describe a fan who claims to be a Golden Knight fan, got all the gear, got the jerseys, got the shirts, got the bobbleheads, all of them, and you find out they sold their tickets to the Stanley Cup because they tripled their money? You have to judge that fan differently. You don't have to say, you suck, I'm not going to be your friend anymore. I'm not going there. But you have to judge that guy or gal as a fraud. You have to say, okay, unless you're going into a medical surgery, you had something happen in your family, you desperately needed the money. Most Golden Knight fans who have good season tickets don't need any money. They know what they're paying for the tickets. They sold the tickets because it was easy for them to sell. It was just they got an offer they couldn't refuse, right, from The Godfather. An offer you couldn't refuse. Okay, I get that. I wasn't born on, yesterday. I was born on third base, but not yesterday. So don't tell me those fans are great fans. Do not. You can be a fan, but if you judge the categories of fandom, that would be diehard, extreme loyalty, passionate, fair weather, bad fan, whatever you do. If you sell your championship round tickets to the opposing fans, you are extremely flawed. I have the right to say that. I'm a sports talk host. I talk sports. I am not the authority on this, but I believe what I'm saying is very accurate. So don't walk around Toshiba Plaza and tell me how much you love the Golden Knights when you sold your tickets for Game 6. And right in your section, there's people there that love the team, and you drop 4 Carolina fans in your seats. Give me a break. Forged in gold. I'm diehard. I got all the jerseys. I got a Marner jersey. You're not a fan. You're a fraud. You sold your tickets, and you want to be part of the good things. You know how many fans were needed in that game last night? Vegas couldn't get nothing done. They couldn't get anything going in that game. Not saying the fans screaming louder would have helped that much, but it's nice to know you got your brothers and sisters next to you when you're trying to go out there and win. All right, when we come back, more of your phone calls here about the Knicks winning the championship. I'll dive into the Raiders tomorrow. I got nothing. I talked to everybody. Everybody who was at minicamp called me and told me I know what's there. I love all the content. I watched it all the press conferences. Kirk Cousins, Mendoza, the players who were playing hard. Max Crosby was at UFC. Oh, I'm going to get to UFC and that freedom fight also coming up next.
Welcome back to the JT the Brick Show, brought to you by The Black Hole. Become a member of football's most notorious fans.
I feel like what Brunson did to Wembanyama was the ultimate revenge. And Brunson never went at him, never got mad, never said a word post-game. I got no comment on that, was all he would say. Didn't get into the war of words, didn't show any emotion. Just in the end, what did he do? Put 45 on your floor, sent you home. That's the ultimate revenge. I just ended your season. The best revenge is that. Not getting into the war of words, not talking, not trying to throw a punch. No, I'm not doing any of that. I'm just going to beat him.
That's Alan Hahn from ESPN, an analyst on Jalen Brunson shutting down the Spurs. JT, back with you as we continue here. I'm celebrating the Knicks. I'm a Knicks fan, diehard Knicks fan. Waited my whole radio career to host this show today. I've never done a radio show after the Knicks won a title. I've done pretty much every other radio show you could ever do. Haven't done a show after the Raiders won the Super Bowl. I'm hoping that happens. I think it will now with Mendoza and Bowers and Genty. Yes, I think the Raiders will win a Super Bowl. Not get there, win in this era of Mendoza, Bowers, and Genty. I'm not saying this year or next year, but in the next 3 to 5 years, they should be in and winning a Super Bowl. That's not crazy. Okay, and there's been other decades where I've said the same thing about the Raiders. I mean, good teams, they got good enough teams like the Jack Del Rio Raiders. That was a very good team, 12-4. I remember saying this team was good enough to get to the Super Bowl and win. I don't say it every day. I don't say it every year. I'm not saying it anytime soon. But at some point, the whole reason why Bowers, Mendoza, and Genty are playing together with Max is to win a Super Bowl. Now, they look to be far away now. I don't know how far. But they're building it to do it right. Egypt over Belgium, 1-0. Wow. Oh, that's in the 65th minute. Earlier today, Spain. Cape Verde, that's a 0-0 nil tie. No score there. Some of these big soccer games are big. I'm going to the World Cup. My guy was able to get tickets for my son and I. My youngest son, who's a really big soccer fan. So we're going, I think, June 28th on a Sunday. Here in a couple weeks. We're going to go to L.A. and go see some World Cup. 702-365-9200. We're looking for hockey fans and NBA fans as both the Stanley Cup was decided and the NBA Finals decided in the last 24 to 48 hours. We want to get your reaction there on what you thought about those teams historically and what it means to their teams in respect to the great teams that came before them. Here's Antonio from Modesto. Thanks for waiting, Antonio. What's happening?
Hey, I know you always leave Vegas in the heat. I'm coming in the heat next. I'll be there in a couple of days, but I think it's supposed to be 107 out there. I can't wait.
It's hot.
Hey, I go back to the Bernard King. I don't remember Walt Frazier because I'm your age, but I was a Warrior fan back then with Rick Barry and those guys. But I think the significance of this means a lot to the NBA period. Just to see the Mecca. You've heard Michael Jordan call the Garden the Mecca. You heard even LeBron them call the Mecca. I just thought it was good basketball, a good story for Knicks fans and the city of New York. I mean, you think of all the boroughs out there of going to Rutgers Park and watching them hoop from way back in the day. So I really clearly enjoy it. Football's one. Basketball is 1A for me. I'm locked into all those sports. But I just had a quick question. I know you wanted to bring over for me. What did you think of Barkley and them and all those guys on the new network? Did it seem a little bit off to you? I enjoyed it. I thought Barkley he called Fox. He had a lot of bad words to say about Fox after that game 4, I believe it was, where he could have laid the ball or not laid up. What did you think of Barkley and that team that day with their new network this year?
Yeah, I didn't love it as much. Thanks for the call. Appreciate you. The TNT that NBA on TNT was fantastic. They were just much more comfortable with the platform of being on TNT than ESPN. I don't think ESPN promoted them well. ESPN's going through right now this run of Pat McAfee and Stephen A. Smith. Those are the stars of ESPN. It is not Inside the NBA. It's not at all. So Inside the NBA with Ernie Johnson is a great brand. Charles Barkley, Kenny the Jet, Shaq, and I think they've been out there a long time. I'm not saying they need a big refresher, but Draymond Green's going to take over for Shaq. Shaq's got more money than he's ever needed. So Shaq eventually is going to walk away. They'll pay to keep Barkley. Ernie is a grandpa. Right, he's a grandfather. He's not going to do this much longer. He doesn't need to. And Draymond Green's going to be the big face of that show. And Draymond Green is not very likable. Even Warrior fans don't like Draymond Green. So they're going to have a tough push going forward, I think. And I don't think ESPN thinks of them at the same level they do of their NFL content. NFL is king at ESPN. ESPN is broadcasting the Super Bowl this year. So they're going to have the Super Bowl. And I think they do a good job, but it's even hard to find on ESPN. Like, I always knew where Ernie was and Shaq and Kenny and Charles on TNT. Always knew when it was on. I don't even know when it's on ESPN. I know it's on pre- and post-game, but it's just hard to find. It's not cross-promoted well. To me, overall, it's been just weird. Well, that's what happens. These guys are multimillionaires. They move from different platforms to different platforms. If you want to get through now so we can get you up here. I've been gone for 10 days. I'm not looking like for a hero's return. I'm not looking for JT, we missed you. I'm just looking for phone calls and people that want to talk sports. And we just had an NBA title and a Stanley Cup in our backyard. So I would think this would be a good day for a local show on those two big national topics. 702-365-9200 if you want to get in. Now I wanted to mention this UFC freedom fight, which I wasn't planning on watching. I went to the Golden Knight game last night. So I went to the hockey game. It was early. It was a 5 o'clock start with my son. I was invited to go to the UFC event in the nation's capital with a friend of mine who went there. He didn't have tickets right next to the octagon, but he had access. And Max Crosby was there. It would have been nice to see Max, but I'm not a UFC guy. I'm a boxing guy. So I'm not the guy that you invite to go to the UFC road trip. But if they're here in town and it's a decent card, I'm not going to say I'm not going to watch it. But I'm not a UFC, diehard. That's not me. So I came home from the hockey game, and my wife and youngest son were watching the UFC card, and I couldn't believe it. It looked spectacular. Now, in the lead up to it, it looked kind of interesting and weird as motorcycles were doing flips and looked like a carnival atmosphere. But what I thought was good about this event, and there were some low moments, especially when one of the fighters said something derogatory about Michelle Obama. That was way out of line, completely inappropriate. terrible, right? And everyone who was there should walk away from that and basically say they do not agree with that. I don't care who you are. You think you're funny, you're a clown, you're a knucklehead, cauliflower-ear guy, you think it's funny, you're an idiot. That was completely outlandish. But what they did, which was great, and I give Dana White all the credit for it, is he tied the event into the military. And he tied it into the history of the country and Ronald Reagan and, war survivors and heroes of the war, veterans, police officers. I mean, how crazy was it to see the fighters walk out of the Oval Office? Like they're getting introduced and they're coming through the Oval Office. I mean, that's pretty cool. So I leave politics out of this show. You know that's true. I got a podcast, JT and Looney. I'll tap my toe in it. But you don't tune in to hear politics. But that was a unique event that is getting rave reviews. So the people who are so triggered politically and can't say it was the last fight, the Gaethje fight was legendary. It's one of the great performances in UFC history. So if you like UFC, from a sports perspective, you had to like that fight. That fight was unbelievable. I watched it. But the flyover, the way the White House looked, the way the stage was set, the lighting, the pyro, the drone shots, it was fabulous. Stephen A. came on today and said, as good as anything, he couldn't go, but watching it as good as anything he watched. Jay Williams on ESPN said he went to the NBA Finals, not even close. So he said, I just talked for 6 minutes about it. I never mentioned politics. Never. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. That looked really good. And they pulled it off. You don't have to like it. But if you can't sit in a room and say, that looked pretty good, I don't think they're going to do it again. Dana White said last night at the press conference immediately following, goes, he can't afford to do it there again. UFC can't, of course they can afford it, but they're not going to spend the money that they spent at all for the Sphere or for what they spent on the lawn of the White House. It's too expensive. And I thought it was a big miss that that card wasn't on CBS for free and it was on Paramount Plus. I have Paramount Plus, and it's part of whatever package I have with my phone or whatever it is. But that was worth buying because you saw something that we've never seen in the history of the United States in 250 years. You saw a big sporting event on the grounds of the White House. And that was cool as hell. And you don't have to like the president or not. You don't. But if you tuned in and watched it, I think everybody would have said the same thing. I say, I'll make the comparison to the World Cup. We are not a great soccer country. We're not. So you put the soccer games in Seattle, Kansas City, L.A., whatever. It's not as diehard as putting it in London, right? If you put it in Germany. If you had the World Cup in Germany and how much better that would be than the United States, everybody in Germany actually understands soccer. They can talk about it. We can't here because we're no good. Our men are playing okay, but our women are great, not the men. But if you're a UFC fan, you'll never see that White House experience again. You'll never see the connection to the military again. And one thing that Dana White's done, he's done a lot of things, but one thing he's done is he's raised the bar for the way we watch sports. He's special. I mean, a combination of P.T. Barnum in regards to putting on epic spectacles to as good as any commissioner I've seen in my lifetime. Have you seen a better commissioner or a head of a sport than Dana White, who lives not too far from us here in Vegas? So that was a monster effort to pull off. It looked pretty good. Yeah, there were some comments, especially from one fighter, that I thought was really inappropriate and should be talked down. But the fights were good. The fans loved it. The weather held up. I was traveling yesterday. I mean, I traveled from Richmond, Virginia to Vegas, and everybody at the airport was trying to get ahead of these thunderstorms. I mean, we live in a time now where you could be beautiful weather. Weather's perfect at the airport. Weather's perfect where you're going. And the airline's like, nope, we're not going. Thunderstorm's coming. We're going to shut it down. You're going to miss your connector. And a lot of people in D.C. were worried about the fact that they just thought the fight would be canceled. Do you know if they ended up getting a lightning strike within 8 miles of the White House? 8 miles. They would shut down the card for 30 minutes. They could have had 12 lightning strikes. They didn't. So I thought it was pretty impressive. I thought a lot of people made sense of it. And I think the other thing to take away from it is if politics are engulfing you so badly that you can't watch sports because of politics, wow, I feel for you, man. That's never going to happen to me. I will never mix politics and sports or will turn something off because of politics. I'll watch it, then comment on it. So if you watched UFC last night, what'd you think of it? Was it worth it? Was it easy to find? Did you have Paramount Plus or not? Do you wish it was on CBS for free? Did you actually like the sport and the event that went down? I'd love to get your opinion on that at 702-365-9200. And more on the Knicks and what the Knicks were able to do in the Vegas Golden Knights. Tomorrow, I'll be diving more into the Golden Knights' loss and where the franchise goes in the future, which they're giving away draft pick after draft pick. They're signing big money guys. Eventually, this team, on paper, shouldn't be able to go back every year to the Cup. But they got one great thing going for them. Players want to play here. They love playing at the Fortress. They love living in Vegas. They love the tax break. And they love the entertainment. So they're having an easy time getting players to come here who are really good. Will that train keep rolling? 702-365-9200. Brought to you by Boyd Gaming. Always bet on black. Proud partner of our show. All the 10 Boyd properties here in town. The local casino partner of the Las Vegas Raiders. JT, final segment coming up. 702-365-9200. We'll put a bow on the Knicks win and the Golden Knights loss coming up next.
Welcome back to the JT the Brick Show. Brought to you by Modelo Especial, the new #1 beer in the U.S.
It's dumped in with 10 seconds to go. On the Carolina bench, they are embracing, jumping, and hugging one another as the clock runs out on 2026. The Stanley Cup Championship goes to the Carolina Hurricanes. They defeat the Golden Knights in shutout fashion, 3-0. Brandon Bussey earns the shutout in his third straight win. And the Hurricanes win the Stanley Cup for the second time in franchise history.
I want to thank Dan Duva, Gary Lawless for everything they did this year, period, on the Golden Knights Radio Network. Congratulations to Carolina's radio network, their TV network, as the Carolina Panthers came into Vegas and absolutely obliterated Las Vegas in Game 6. I'd like to get a hockey call before this show wraps up, before Q Myers comes at the top of the hour. The big topic today is if you were a season ticket holder, you know who you are if you sold tickets to Carolina fans. I was there throughout the crowd. I had a credential. I sat in the crowd. I sat in the press box for a little bit. I moved around, and I expected Carolina fans to be there. Don't get me wrong. I'm not oblivious. And I'm not saying that there were too many of them there. I'm not saying that it was overwhelmingly Carolina fans, but there were sections in the lower bowl, that were season ticket holders who sold their tickets to Carolina fans. And they weren't giving them away to their family and friends. They sold them, which is okay. You have the right to do whatever you want to do with your tickets to a certain extent. If the team finds out or the team has certain rules, that's a different topic. But overall, fans who sell season tickets in a game that's a must-win game, an elimination game to the opposing fans, woo, good luck with that. That is insanity to me. And we saw a little bit of that going on. World Cup's a big deal. So over the next couple of days, you might hear a World Cup interview or two on the show here because I want to go. I'll be going to the World Cup with my son in a couple of weeks. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that. The NBA with the Knicks winning the championship. Again, I'm not sitting here saying the Knicks are about to become a dynasty, but you got to understand the magnitude of how many fans won a championship for the first time in their lifetime. You know, I just turned 60. They hadn't won in 53 years. 53. So that's pretty much my whole life. 7 years old, going on 8 years old the last time they won. I didn't remember much of it. But now I have a ring as a fan. It's not my ring. I didn't play. But as a fan, that's one on my bucket list. The Raiders winning a Super Bowl, even though they've won 3 and played in 5. That would be a bucket list for me to see the Raiders win the Super Bowl. I hope that happens. I'm assuming that's going to happen. I don't think I'm going to have to wait because the wait's over 20 years of even going to a Super Bowl. And now you got to go back to Super Bowl 18, the last time the Raiders won, and now we're at Super Bowl 61. I mean, that's a drought from winning the Super Bowl. But fortunately for the Raiders, and the Raiders care about the Raiders, there's a lot of teams in the NFL have never won a Super Bowl. And sometimes I think Raider fans kind of lose track of that the Bengals have never won a Super Bowl. The Browns have never won a Super Bowl. Look around. Who haven't won a Super Bowl? The Detroit Lions have not won a Super Bowl. The Buffalo Bills, the San Diego LA Chargers have not won a Super Bowl. So if you go through all these teams that haven't won, and you say, well, we haven't won since Super Bowl 18, I get it. It's a long drought, but there's teams that have had a drought the entire era of the Super Bowl. And that's hard to deal with, man, because a lot of people have to spend money to support their teams. And if you're going to, the Knicks fans and the amount of money that the Knicks fans have spent on tickets is alarming. Now, we found out that Ben Stiller and some of the guys who sit on Celebrity Row don't have to pay. So James Dolan and the Knicks give away those tickets for the social media and what it does and how it spreads the vision of being a Knick on Celebrity Row. I get all that. But all the other Knick fans that have been spending money to sit in the lower bowl, the second deck, suites or whatever, billions with B's, billions upon billions of dollars on tickets and transportation and food just to watch this team not win for 53 years. Oh, boy. That is a lot of money spent by a fan base. And now the Knicks I think the Knicks are going to have one of the greatest parades in the history of parades. I really do. I think this Knick parade could go down as one of the biggest NBA parades of all time because it's in the heart of New York City, in the Canyon of Heroes. And you got Yankee and Met fans in New York, Giants and Jet fans, but there's no one who's a fan of the Brooklyn Nets, like literally no one. You can barely fit them in an arena, and the Knicks fans will show up in a big way for that. 702-365-9200. Look back at the box score of the hockey game last night. All you got to do is look at the 3 zeros, the goose eggs in the first, second, and third period. It wasn't like the Hurricanes put it on. They scored a goal and each did. I thought Carter Hart played well for most of the year, especially, in the playoffs. He was really good. I think he could have played better in the Stanley Cup Final. And for me, Jack Eichel, inability to score goals. He's a good player. A great player, two-way player. But the fact that Eichel could not score and really wasn't a dominant force at this stage hurt. Jack Eichel in this game, he took 2 shots. Eichel overall really struggled in this game. In 27 shifts. What he was able to not do in that game, his time on ice, really disturbing overall for Jack Eichel. And to his credit, I just think he ran out of gas. Ran out of gas in the biggest, he's won a Stanley Cup, but one of the biggest elimination games of his life. So when you look at what happened here, man, it was, I walked into that building. The place was jamming. It was hot. Steve Aoki, my son, and his buddy wanted to go see Steve Aoki and perform there. And they had jerseys on. They were wearing Golden Knight jerseys. They came back to the beer house in 15 minutes and were like, Dad, I'm what? He goes, it's insane hot. Insane. There's no shade on Toshiba Plaza. And Steve Aoki's, DJing, and people are just sweating through their jerseys on their way in, which was really unique. I thought the crowd was great. When I got up into the press box was packed. Had a chance to see Tommy Ippolito and the whole crew at the former Hyde. Went up there and did a lap around there. The fans were just crazy and ready to go. And when I left at the end of the game to get my Uber home, that's surge, Colin. That's surge price on my Uber last night. My wife dropped us off down there. wife wasn't coming to get us through that insanity. That was a nice Uber, man. That was a big one to get out of there. But the fans in general, I thought, showed a lot of respect to the Carolina Hurricane fans. And the Carolina Hurricane fans that bought the tickets and showed up and were able to go into that building and enjoy it, more power to them. It takes a lot of guts to buy tickets and go on the road. Hotel airfare and hope that your team's going to win, and they do. Those are memories of a lifetime. Congratulations to the Carolina Hurricanes on winning the 2026 Stanley Cup. A worthy opponent. Vegas only won 39 games this year. Carolina won 53. So Vegas got hot when it mattered most with their all-star team, but they were a flawed team because you could look at Carolina's record and say that's a better team. I thought Vegas, when the playoffs began and they got winning and they got to the Cup, were the better team. I thought they had the better momentum overall. I'm just surprised that they ran out of gas so late. Colin, thanks for running the show. He'll be with me all week here. Clay is out. Tomorrow, Kurt Heelan from Basketball Talk will join us as we recap the NBA season. We'll try to get a hockey guest on. And then we'll dive into the Raiders, which I know you expect here on Raider Nation Radio. And there'll be a lot of content coming up here. I got a lot of things happening. Phil Villapiano will join us this week. Phil was really kind to send me an advanced copy of his book with a nice note in it, and I'm really humbled by what Phil said. Phil is confirmed to come on later in the week. We'll just nail down the exact time, and we'll get Foo on his new book, which is great. I wish every Raider alumni had a book out because Phil Villapiano is one of the greatest storytellers coming up and that we've ever seen in the history of the Raiders. He is just fantastic overall. Always check out Q. His show is coming up next. Subscribe to our Raider Nation Radio YouTube channel. If you miss any portion of the show, it's at LV Sports Network. I'll be on Mad Dog Sports Radio tonight, 8 to 11 p.m., as I always am Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday on the Powerful 82 Mad Dog Sports Radio. We'll see you back here tomorrow.